What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. Wanted to give you a quick recap, my thoughts from the Texas A&M spring game, what I saw in the game, what I liked, what I didn't like, and maybe how that game changed or reaffirmed my thoughts on this Texas A&M team as they head into 2019. A lot of hype around this team. A lot of people saying this is a top 10 team, saying that this is the team that's going to beat Clemson this year because they almost did it last year. I did a whole video on Texas A&M over on the main channel. If you missed that, go check it out. In that video, I went over why 2019 is not their year, but 2020 might just be. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the spring game and then kind of let you know if I still feel the same way that I did when I made that video. We'll start with the quarterback, Kellen Mond. I was impressed with him. You know, he made a bad interception early in the game, but he bounced back and made a lot of great throws really in a row. And that's what we saw last year at him. You know, he'd make a bad play, but he always bounced back. He is a really, really mentally tough kid. Maybe it's him, maybe it's Jimbo's coaching. I don't know what it is, but just an impressive quarterback. And I expect him to have a big year this year. You look at Zach Calzada. Maybe he won the backup job. I don't know. I think he probably winds up just redshirting. He could be the guy of the future. Really, I wasn't overly impressed with any of the other quarterbacks. You know, they all were okay. Even Calzada. I mean, you could see the arm talent. You could see the potential there with him. Maybe a little more than the other two guys. But I don't think we really learned a ton there. And I only watched the first half of the game. That's about all I'm going to watch. So if I miss something important in the second half, you guys can fill me in there. But yeah, just based off of the first half, didn't really see anything that jumped out at me. Jacob Cabody, the running back, number 23, was really impressed with him. It seemed like if he was able to get past that first level, he was making guys miss. He was making great cuts, running with power. He looked like a starting running back in the SEC, and I know they were missing some of their top guys. Maybe he made a name for himself. Maybe he played his way into some serious playing time. Again, he probably stood out to me more than anyone in this game. And I only watched the first half, but just really impressed with some of his runs, his vision, again, his ability to cut and just make guys miss and run with power as well. Looked like a legitimate SEC running back. Just a spring game. I think they had 19 guys out in this game. So we'll see. But yeah, I was impressed with him for sure. Baylor Cupp, tight end, had an awful start to the game. He missed a block. He had a fumble, but he came back and made a nice touchdown catch. Almost made a really impressive one-handed catch, but he didn't quite time it out right, I think. So he's a freshman. You know, a lot of hype around him. I had him listed as one of their top 10 players in 2019. I think he's going to be that good. I still feel that way. Again, he's a freshman, though. It may take him a couple of games to really find his groove, but they really like the tight ends. Jimbo really likes the tight ends in this offense, and I think Baylor Cupp could be that go-to guy. And it's funny just talking to Jimbo. You can tell he's more worried about the offense than he is the defense. There was a penalty where he was trying to say it was on the defensive guy making the offensive lineman jump. And just it seemed like he was definitely more concerned with the offense when they would talk to him, and that's, you know, what he does. So that was interesting, just a takeaway there from the spring game. I thought that the offensive line was okay, not great not great blocking in the run game. You know, the defensive line was in the backfield a lot, but when the running backs like Cabody were able to get around that first wave, get past the defensive line, there was not great defense on the back end. The linebackers, secondary, they did not tackle all that well, had some bad angles, gave up 2 third and long conversions, like 3rd and 20 almost, on a screen pass and a little dump off to the running back. So they've got some issues there. It's just a spring game, so I'm not saying this is indicative of what you're going to see next season. We're evaluating the spring game. This is a spring game recap, so I'm just telling you what I saw in the spring game. So that was a concern. Secondary was okay. There were a lot of wide open receivers at times, and that was something that they struggled with last year. So even though they've got a lot of those guys back, are they really going to be that much better? That's going to be a big concern. Again, defensive line, they lost some guys, but I thought they did solid there. They were able to stuff the run for the most part. Didn't have a great pass rush in this game when they did not bring a blitz. So I guess that was one good sign for the offensive line. But overall, I think the defensive line did win the battle when you talk about defensive line versus the offensive line. So again, we talked about the linebackers, the secondary. They weren't great, honestly. They just were not great in this game. And one other note that I had, as I just go through and make notes as I'm watching the games, punter Braden Mann is going to be an absolute weapon. You could just see it. He's going to be able to flip the field a lot. Had some great punts that were really close or did pin the other team inside the 20, inside the 10-yard line. So he's going to be a real weapon, and that's something that could really help them in some of these close games. If they get into a close game at Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, field position could be huge. Being able to pin the other teams back deep, that could be a game-changing type play, and it's brought on by the punter. So I don't want to overlook him and his importance to this team. I think he could make a big impact, again, when you talk about some of those close games that come down to just a few little things. So that's something that I noticed as well. But just overall, just taking a step back and looking at the spring game, how does it affect my thoughts on 2019? There's definitely some talent on this team. You can see it. I think they're going to be okay. They're going to be a good team. But I still really feel the way that I did before this spring game. I feel better about the running back position. If Cabody was that good and he's the third or fourth guy, I know Travion Williams was great, but that means they've got some talent there at the running back position. Maybe not a lot of experience, but they've got the talent, and that's going to be a big key for them as well, is finding someone to step up in the run game or a group of guys to step up. And that was a good sign for me. Kellen Mond, we knew what we were going to get. Still, they throw to the tight ends a lot. They have so many weapons at receiver. I know they had a lot of guys out in this game. You just wonder, are they going to throw more to the receivers this year? Because they have talented guys out there. Or are they going to, really focus on the tight ends? There was another tight end on the other team, not Baylor Cupp. I apologize, I don't remember his name. He made some good plays as well. Again, they really like to throw to those tight ends. And that's all because of Jimbo Fisher. That's what he liked to do in the past as well. So that'll be interesting to see the receivers and how they do. Again, they have a lot of talent there, a lot of guys back. Again, Kellen Mond, even though he threw an interception early, that really didn't matter to me. We know what we're going to get out of him. We saw him all last year. We know how good he is and can be. So that's not an area of concern, but just the overall offensive line, the running backs, things like that. They do have some questions. And I think it's going to take them a little bit of time, honestly, next year. I don't think they're going to come out of the gates looking like a top 10 team. And I don't know that they're ever going to be a top 10 team next year. I think this is a top 25 team, no doubt about it. But you look at the schedule, it's hard to imagine them doing better than about 8-4. And maybe even a 7-5 type season for them. They have Clemson on the road. They have Georgia and LSU on the road. And then they have Alabama as well. If you win 3 out of 4 of those games and then win the rest of your games, that's 9-3. But even that's going to be tough to do. And even if they do pull off one of those wins, they could easily lose to someone else like Auburn or one of those other teams. So yeah, I think it's going to be a tough year for them because of the schedule. I said the same thing about LSU last year, and I was wrong. I'll admit it, I was wrong. So perhaps I'm wrong about Texas A&M. Perhaps they're able to overcome this schedule and have a great year. And LSU wasn't, they still lost 2 or 3 games last year. They lost to Alabama, Texas A&M, and Florida. So even as good as they were with that brutal schedule, they still lost 3 games. And I think Texas A&M's schedule is tougher this year than LSU's was last year because LSU didn't have to play Clemson. So that's, again, why with this schedule, I think 8-4 is about as good as you're going to get if you're Texas A&M. And I think it could even be maybe 7-5. So my thoughts haven't changed. I still think the future is very bright for Texas A&M. I think 2020 could be a very special year if Kellen Mond returns for his senior season. But with the schedule, with the youth at some positions, and just overall depth that needs to improve, I think Texas A&M is still a year away. I think this is a team that probably starts and finishes in the top 25. But because of that schedule, they're nowhere near the top 10. I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about this Texas A&M team? Did you watch the spring game? What were your takeaways? Maybe you had a different perspective than I did. And if you did, feel free to share that perspective. I always like to hear what you guys have to say and what you think about all of this stuff as well. But that's going to do it for this video. We will have some type of recap, hopefully for every SEC team. We've already done all of the teams that played last weekend. We've already done Kentucky. Mark Rogers TV helping us out with some of these recaps. So it's may not all come from me, but you're going to see some type of recap for every SEC team here on this channel. But thank you for watching this one, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports SEC Football Channel.